Hi, you two. We're back with Miss Bettye LaVette. Hi, Miss LaVette.
Hi, baby. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So as the kid was talking about the beehives and the afros, we seen a picture of you while we were researching of you in this blonde beehive wig, and you were rocking it.
Well, that color was designed particularly for me. It probably would have, well, I don't know. I think that Black women can wear blonde. It just has to be regulated for what shade of dark they are.
Hmm.
And that I happened at that time to be living in Harlem, in New York, up over a beauty salon, and the owner of the beauty salon owned the building, and he and I became great friends, and he designed that color just for me.
That is wonderful. So when you got your outfits made, were they store bought or were they personally made for you?
They were made for me. I buy more stuff from the store now because there are many more choices. But you at that time, I mean, it was vogue. I mean, everybody in show business had their outfits made by someone. There was a woman in the '60s. Her name was uh, Helen Taylor, and she sewed for Inez Fox and Gladys Knight, Maxine Brown, and Gladys Knight had this red velvet two-piece suit. And you said you saw the Shindig performance. I had on the same suit in orange satin.
That is um a wonderful connection you had back then. So back in your younger days, who was your favorite singer to listen to?
Um, a gang of singers when I was younger. As I got to be closer toward teenage, one of my favorite singers was a woman whose name is Baby Washington, who lives here in New Jersey, and I'm going to be interviewing her in a few days on my radio show. But I had her over here for a holiday, Memorial Day, a few years ago, and my grandchildren were here. And she's like, well, shucks, I'm 75 and she's older than me. And my grandchildren, they asked, do you know who this is? I said, this is the woman that I stood in front of the mirror and practiced being when I was 13 and 14.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I love Miss Washington. Her song, um, that's how heartaches are made. They
Yeah.
told me I was
How did you
to love
find all this
you.
out in 13 years?
It's a
I mean,
mix.
every time I say a name, you say it like you were at the bar with them last night.
um, well, how I found her is my friend Oliver. He was telling me about singers, and he had said, Look up a lady called Baby Washington," and I was like, "Okay."
How old is he?
He's 17.
Oh, Jesus.
And he was like, "Okay, look up this singer. Her name is Baby Washington." I was like, "Okay." And when I looked her up, she was on Sue Records. And so I was like, "Okay, that's where Ike and Tina, one of my favorite singers, Ike and Tina, were
Oh
from."
my goodness. I don't know. You've got to be the only 13-year-old in the world who can say the words Sue Records. You need to be interviewed.
I
You
have,
are just amazing to me.
yes, ma'am. And when
Oh,
I
don't sound so humble.
no, no, ma'am. I just don't want to come off as, oh, I know, um,
Oh, no, I'm just joking with you, but are really, that's amazing. And it's so what I want certainly young Black children to do. For young white children to know all three of the artists that were on that first record label that Elvis Presley was on, for some reason always annoyed me, because I knew that I didn't know any young Black children who knew Sue Records and that kind of thing. So I'm just so extremely proud of you, and your friend as well is just so encouraging. I'm seeing more young Black faces in my audience, and if they come to the dressing room, I always let them know when I hit the stage, I'm looking for them, and it's always so disappointing if I don't see any.
Yes, ma'am. It's not, and you can know that going to school is not the best place to communicate about music. I'll bring up some artists that they don't even know. Who is that? And then I had to sit down and lecture them on
That's good. That's
on an artist
wonderful.
who's probably deceased. Like one instance I had is when I had told my friends to listen to a song, and it was "Poor Fool" by Ike and Tina Turner. I was like, who is that? I was like, this Ike and Tina Turner. And them being I go to a majority of a Black school, them growing up in a Black household, I'm pretty sure they watched What's Love Got to Do with It. And they'll be like, you listen to them? They were an abusive couple. And I was like, well, I wasn't there, so I didn't see it. And then they'll be like, that's Tina Turner? I'll be like, yeah, she had a career before What's Love Got to Do with It? And they're like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's hard liking old music and being in 2021.
I know, I just imagine it is, and it's so rare and phenomenal. I'm just bursting in pride about you. I really am. This is some of the greatest news I've heard in a long time from your faction.
So, how is life treating you now? You're not performing as much. So what do you do to pass by time?
Oh, well, I've got a lovely home here in New Jersey. And because I have no help with it now, because I'm afraid to let anybody in the house. So I've been housekeeping. I never want to see another bed or toilet or stove again as long as I live. And, I've been cooking. I'm glad that I learned to cook on one of the low times. So I know how to cook a whole gang of things. We've got 2 kitties, and they go in and out all day long. And there's just a lot to do here. And I work out. And I've done, I've done at least 5 concerts. And I've made 4 videos and done just a jugal of interviews, so it hasn't been, I received, I got another Grammy nomination and received, and another nomination for a new Blues Music Award, won a Blues Music Award, and got inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame, all right here in the living room.
That is wonderful. You mentioned that you lived in New Jersey. I've never been there. The only reason how I really know a lot about New Jersey is Dionne Warwick and her whole family.
Whitney Houston, Queen Latifah, John Bon
a lot of people
the Isley Brothers.
A lot of people are me not
and they've embraced me, and it's been so, they've embraced me tremendously. It's this 5th career happened since I've been here, and they just pulled me right on into the arms of New Jersey. I wish it had happened and I was in Detroit. Although Detroit has been, writing a lot of things about me, and they had me come in and put my handprints into the cement in front of the Detroit Historical Museum. And that was quite an honor. And because, as I said, if you're there musically, all things Motown. And the only people who weren't with Motown was me and Aretha Franklin and Jackie Wilson.
And Aretha, she is, I've never interviewed her. I wish I have, but it's sad to see that she passed.
Yes, yes. Her voice is so missing in the air.
It is, and it's sad to see a lot of other artists pass these.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Seeing all these other artists pass last year and this year, it's getting kind of sad. That's why we do these interviews to, preserve it, so no one else can tell your story. No one can tell.
We're very, I know that I speak for us all when I say we're very appreciative.
Yes, ma'am, because it seems that, you haven't been affected by this, but a lot of the other artists are being pushed back because of the new artists who are coming in and who are taking over the industry, and it's not the same like it used to be. I don't think it will be the same.
Oh, I don't think it ever will be the same either. But I think that we're living longer. And when I do the same hard show that somebody half my age, and I get all the votes for Grammys except one, that last crucial one, I think that there should be a room for us. I don't think that I should be asked to compete with a teenager.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, there's no, as far as I'm concerned, I win, whatever it is. I hate to be crude, but in or out of bed, standing or laying, I just, you don't get old for no reason at all. You learn things as you go. And if everybody learned them in 20 years, then there would be no such thing as the word genius. Everybody would be one. So I just wish that the industry would make some room for the bridges that these children came across on. That was one of the reasons that I did my last album. These women were the rhythm and blues singers of the time just before me, and then I went on and carried the mantle of rhythm and blues. And, for somebody now to dance up on a rhythm and blues Grammy is just annoying to me.
It is. So, how has your life being in the music industry, does it affect you going to a store? Do people spot you out and be like, oh, do people?
Well, honey, knowing the lineage of my career, that is what I always wanted to happen. That has been happening a lot lately, and it's completely flattering. I used to sit at lunch at a table in Detroit, say I was at lunch with Martha Reeves. Somebody would come over and say, oh, it's Martha Reeves, and just completely ignore me because I wasn't visually known the way she was.
Yeah, I understand that. And you weren't one of the artists to go over to Europe when America wasn't doing as, your music wasn't doing as well here. You stayed. And
no, I didn't go, but they sent for me. And it is they who kept me alive until this fifth career started. Let Me Down Easy never stopped selling in England. It's still selling. It is the biggest record I've ever had by virtue of the fact that it has been selling for 40 years continuously. Maybe one a week, maybe 10 a year, but every year. So, and finally, because I've outlived both all of those recordings almost in terms of their popularity, their general popularity, I'm getting royalty checks for the first time in my life because I don't owe any record companies any money now because they've been constantly selling those records. It took them, because they were only selling a few, it took 25, 30 years to sell some of them. But now, whatever money they spent on them has been paid back. So after that, it's gravy.
It
And too,
is.
I think it's kind of neat too. Me growing up, listening to music back in your era and before. On my dad owned a juke joint, and he played old music, that had meaning to it, that had a message in it, and it was wonderful. So when I got married and started having children, my husband said, "You're young, but your soul, you have an old soul." And to me, I took it as being a compliment because the music was so rich back then. It was wonderful. It wasn't degrading, it wasn't rude, it wasn't disrespectful. It was a message of love and
Well, look how
happiness.
it's separated now. I
Yes,
used
ma'am.
to work in a club. When I would work in a club in Detroit, you would do a matinee on Sunday in the afternoon, and it'd be a whole gang of young people there. And then after that, it would be night and the adults would come. But everyone liked the Temptations. Everybody in Detroit liked me. Everybody liked all of the artists, no matter what age you were. There was no kids' music and adult music. Now maybe you would get off into a Frank Sinatra, Sarah Vaughan thing and not be able to drag the teenagers with you. But all the artists at the Four Tops, myself, all of those people of that era, Sam and Dave, adults and young people like them.
One artist that cannot slide by is Millie Jackson. She cannot slide by.
Slide by what?
The whole children and adult act at the same time.
Oh, well, she could at one time. That isn't where she started.
Yeah, she could have.
Stand up. She'd always cuss you out, maybe in the dressing room, but she used to just stand up and sing songs. I was very disappointed when she took another route, but she is, for whatever fault, she's possibly one of the best. She and Frida Payne and Smokey Robinson's ex-wife are the best women I have ever met in my 60 years. And Tina Turner. Those are the nicest. Yeah, those are the nicest women I have ever met. I won't bother to tell you who the worst ones were, but
don't even worry about it.
those are the nicest women I have ever met in my life.
All those women you've named, I know. So for you to say those names, really, made my eyes open even wider than they were when you got on Zoom. And it's wonderful that you artists from the 60s, 50s, 70s can still be friends, even though Tina did rock music, even though...
Now, listen, I did not say that. I did not say that. It doesn't make sense for me to we are all friendly, but we haven't been friends since we were young, because when you start striving for the same thing, you're only so friendly you can be unless you're on the same team. And if you aren't in a group or on a team, I had always said I don't have any girlfriends who sing. I have friends who sing, but not girlfriends who sing, because when I was in this deep struggle, I wanted three things. I wanted a record contract, a good manager, and a husband. Supposing I was with my girlfriend who was looking for the same thing, and he walked through the door. So I just nipped it in the bud. I don't make friends. My girlfriends do things completely different from me. And then most of my friends, period, most of my friends have jobs, very good jobs, and or are retired now, because most entertainers were broke when I was broke. So wasn't no need knowing a bunch of them.
So, if you can remember throughout all 50 years of your career, what was the most craziest stage or show that you did when someone jumped on stage, or you invited a fan backstage and they just, what was the most craziest experience you had with a fan or on tour?
Oh, I wouldn't even know what to say. It's always something happening, not any of the things you described. I think the first time that I went to Norway, they almost pulled me off the stage, and the band had me by the feet, and the audience had me by my body. But that's the only time that's ever happened in the whole 60 years. I think the weirdest show I ever did was I was standing up on a podium and the whole audience was on roller skates. And that was kind of weird. And I did one time where we were on a little platform out in a lake and the audience was on land. And that was weird.
Back in the 60s, I
Since
will
I
say.
am not a fan of water.
Yes, ma'am. Back in the 60s, I will say that they had performers everywhere. I mean, if you go back and look at this, you have Carla Thomas singing on a beach. You have Barbara Lynn singing on a mountain top with fans just scattered everywhere. Back in the 60s, and like Dick Clark and his shows, they were very obscure. You had to perform in places that weren't a regular stage and you're singing to a camera.
No, that didn't happen that often. That did not happen that often. If you saw it, you're probably naming some of the only ones that were done. That really didn't happen that often. These things that I'm talking, the thing in the water, that has happened in the last 10 or 20 years. And the roller skating thing happened in the 60s. But that on location, I remember some things that Dick Clark did like that, but that wasn't a regular routine for American Bandstand. And then there was one show that was done, I can't remember the name of it, but it was done on a beach here in New Jersey. But that really didn't happen that often. It was when videos came into play, and I never got a chance to do one of those. I didn't have a record for the whole video period, or for the whole disco period, because the Doing the Best That I Can did not get to be in the top 10 of disco records. It's just like Let Me Down Easy. It's just stayed over time, just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am, I understand. And me being young, I'm very fascinated in the 60s and 70s. And a few days ago, my grandmother came over and we were just talking about the 60s and the 70s when she was growing up, and listening to you and listening to the Temptations and like you were naming, and watching Soul Train. And I could see that she really had fun back in those days. And I'm pretty sure you performers did as well, even though y'all were on stage. After the show, y'all were probably having parties, going out. So I can see how in the past people were really having fun.
where do you live?
I live in Georgia.
What part?
I'm Columbus.
Mm.
And yeah, that's where I live.
Mm-hmm. Georgia was a main part of the children's circuit. It went Detroit, Cleveland, Louisville, Atlanta, Miami, North and South Carolina, Miami.
Mm-hmm. So,
and that was the route that most tours took. When they got back going toward, I remember when Otis Redding was with the tour that I was with. I mean, tours would break up and 3 or 4 people go this way and 3 or 4 that way, and then they meet back up in another city. So tours were kind of strange then. And they were more like vaudeville shows. It wasn't just one band. It was 3 or 4 people with bands, or 5 or 6 people with bands. But whenever we got to Ohio, that was about as far as Otis Redding and I could go, because we weren't selling records beyond there. We were selling records from there all the way back down to Florida, but not a little bit west, a little bit east, but we didn't go past there.
How was your time with Mr. Redding?
Oh, it was wonderful. He was a wonderful person, big country friendly, singing dude.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, you had went out for a second.
Oh no, I said he was just a big country friendly, singing good dude. He was a wonderful person.
So, you being in the industry, do you have any special treatment when going to events?
I don't know what you mean.
Like, if you're going to an event where it's mostly younger artists, will you get any special treatments?
If I'm on the event,
Mm-hmm.
oh, everything that I get is in my contract. And you get that whether I'm going to sing with Howdy Doody or whether I'm going to sing with the president. So whatever it is you're doing, my contract says what you have to do for me.
Mm-hmm. So what made you write your book? Was it just the people asking you questions all the time? You just were like, okay, let me write a book so people will stop asking me the same questions over and over and over again.
Oh, honey, you really think all this runs very smoothly, don't you? No, I was fortunate enough to meet David Ritz, who is one of the foremost music writers. And that was an opportunity. And these stories that I put in the book were stories that were all that I had. I didn't have the fame that my friends had, but I did have these stories. And I was young with all of these people. And I had stories to tell. And we got a very big publisher, and they wrote a beautiful book, and it looks good. And hopefully they're going to do something with it movie-wise or documentary-wise soon. But you don't just sit around and say, oh, I think I'll write a book. For what, if ain't nobody going to publish it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
but I had a lot of stories to tell that the publishing company was very interested in. And I just told everything as it happened. And a lot of people who were friends of people, well, not friends, but fans. And that was the thing. When I did respond to anybody, it was merely to say that this was a schoolmate, a friend of mine, or you are just a fan. I'm talking about who I know, and you're in love with who you know.
So, growing up in Michigan and Detroit, what were some things that you did to pass time?
You're going to, I'm going to give you about 10 more minutes. What do you mean to pass time? I mean, that's not a good question.
Things that you did to have fun.
I did what any other young person did. And then when I started singing, I was still young and there was no more time to pass. I was singing. I was either rehearsing or mostly rehearsing. And then I didn't play anymore or have fun. I mean, what I was doing was fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a child very long.
What I think is kind of neat too, is that we still have legends like you and the other people that sung duo or solo back in those times that paved the way for people to sing and perform today. It's an honor because, you know, y'all have a lot of history, a lot of stories, and a lot of wisdom to pass on to us generations and generations to come. And I just think it's just a blessing to, you know, to have y'all still here on this earth.
Oh, thank you. I think it's wonderful that young people like your son is interested in writing about this. As I said, the young people who exist now are making so much money and things happen so instantaneously. They are of the notion that they created it and that it happened by osmosis, that it didn't exist before them. And that's just a bad notion there. So I'm so glad when I hear that a young person is interested in, you know, where did I come from? How did this start? Who did this first? I was listening to, what's his name? Oh, the one that's married to a Kardashian.
Kanye West?
Yes. He said that they were asking him something about his beats. He said, I make my own beats. And I said, I would love to have seen him trying to make a beat for James Brown for 4 shows a day at the Apollo.
Me too on that one.
I would love to see that happen.
Well, I do appreciate you even considering doing this interview.
Yes.
I did this really, the voice sounded very young and it sounded ethnic, and I want to do anything that I can to help any young Black person who wants to do anything. If I'm doing anything that I could add to it, I'm just glad you're doing something. I'm so immensely proud of you. And Mom, I thank you for being such a support. And your whole family, like you were talking about your grandparents, you know, just, I'm so glad that they have those things they can tell you too, and those names that they can mention to you, and you can Google them and have them in a snap. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm just so very, very proud of you. Now, when you get these interviews, what do you do with them? Do you put them where?
Oh, I put them on YouTube for us to watch, and we do have a large audience of people who do watch our videos, and I'm pretty sure they're going to enjoy this one.
Oh, honey, I'm just so glad that you chose me to be a part of it. And as I said, keep digging into it and telling it. Thank you for telling it. Thank you both for talking with me today.
Yes, ma'am.
And Kevin, you know, usually posts everything that's happening to me. So if something happens of note, get back with me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my best to you both. I'm just so proud.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
once again, my condolences about your dad.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And we're just so honored, and we appreciate your time, and, you know, keep on living and keep on passing down wisdom and information.
Thank you, baby. Hopefully I'll be coming to Georgia soon. I know I'll be coming to Atlanta, but that's as close
Well, I
as
live all the way in Oklahoma.
You what?
I live in Oklahoma.
Oh my goodness, I'll probably be in Oklahoma before I'll be in Georgia. I don't know. We're booking very carefully, but I'm going to start back working on the 22nd of June. We'll start in Aspen, Colorado. I said, well, everybody lives far apart there, and we'll be up high in the mountains. And so we're going to start there, but we're looking at it very, very carefully. No one that is maskless can approach me, and we can't be grouping up and hugging.
Yes, ma'am. Whenever you come to Oklahoma, I will be watching it. I have to come.
Thank you. Please keep up with me and introduce yourselves to me when you get close to me. I don't care who's there.
Yes,
and if you can get to me,
because I would love an autograph.
Before, if you're coming somewhere that I am, or you want to come somewhere that I am, if you get to me, get to Kevin before, and he can make sure that you can get in and get to me. Okay?
Because I will surely be happy to get an autograph.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll be just happy to meet you guys. It's been so great to talk to you both.
You
Yes,
too.
ma'am. You
You
too.
have a great weekend, both of you.
You too.
Thank you. You too, ma'am.
Bye, baby.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.